And now it's my turn to talk about the latest from Nintendo, the Switch 2. This is a highly anticipated console, handheld as well, but we're going to get into the whole nuance of that in a little bit. In any case, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Here is day one with the Nintendo Switch 2. Okay, since this is called a day one video, obviously I'm basically giving my first impressions on this. Also, it's been a little bit more than one day that I've had the Nintendo Switch 2. There are a couple of reasons for that, which one of them I will get into when I show you the unboxing and give you my reactions to that unboxing. But also, I was actually gone last week for the actual days that the Switch 2 would have come in if it was actually delivered on launch day. So I spent a little bit of the weekend getting acquainted with the Switch 2, buying a couple of games off of the eShop, and of course playing Mario Kart World, which came in the bundle that I was able to acquire. Once again, this is a first impressions video for the most part, so I'm not going to be giving any sort of final thoughts on it. I want to spend more time with this, especially in a travel scenario, since after all, here in my apartment, I am using this mainly as a straight up console. And I do think that that is a little bit more what this Switch 2 is geared towards. Also, the conversation around the price of the console and the price of games moving forward, that'll definitely be a topic of discussion in future content. But for now, let's rewind the clock, get to the unboxing of this, and I just want to share with you what it's like to unbox this, even though I'm sure you've seen a bunch of those already. But with all that in mind, I'm just glad that you came to hang out with me, so let's enjoy this together anyway. Finally, it is my turn to unbox the Nintendo Switch 2. Kind of a funny story, and also this might corroborate what some people are feeling about one particular retailer, Target, when it comes to the pre-order of this Switch 2. I was really lucky that I was able to actually get two Nintendo Switch 2s, mainly because it was like a panic buy, but the second one's gonna go to my girlfriend anyway. Basically, I was feeling really lucky that I got them, only to find out as the actual sale date was approaching that I wasn't going to get the units the day of the initial sale. And that's also really annoying because, as it turns out, there were a lot of units still available even on the first day. So I could have gone to like a GameStop or even a Target and just picked one up without having to worry about waiting for this particular unit, which took a few extra days to finally arrive. Don't get me wrong, I'm really happy that I have a Nintendo Switch 2. I was actually quite hyped about it, even if the hype overall wasn't quite as high as I expected. And also, this is just a chance for me to be able to share the experience that I'm having with this, especially for those of you who are still quite on the fence about it. I just also know that a lot of people were frustrated about that particular aspect of the pre-order process. And here it is, the Switch 2. This is looking like a fun time already, mainly because, well, we have the bundle here. I can get started right away enjoying the Nintendo Switch 2 with Mario Kart World as a digital download, not a physical cartridge, but as a digital download I can get immediately. After all, the whole discussion over the price of the Switch 2 and also all of the games, that's a discussion we're definitely going to have as I do continued content on this console. Did everyone see those stories of how GameStop in particular was actually stapling receipts to this area on the top and thus damaging the screen? That is insane. I'm actually not going to take the main screen out just yet because I want to take a look at these Joy-Cons. Right off the bat, these feel substantial compared to the original Joy-Cons, and we'll do a little bit of a comparison in a little bit. But it does feel a little bit more comfortable now, especially if you're going to take these off of the Switch unit and just play docked, or rather with the kickstand here, not docked, and just be able to play with a more comfortable methodology, just putting it onto a table and using these wirelessly. Also, the other thing that I think is interesting, playing them sideways already feels a little bit better than before. They were like really tiny on the original Nintendo Switch, making it a bit uncomfortable for those who were not given the luxury of a Pro Controller. All right, putting that aside, we're actually getting to the unit now, and right off the bat, very much a bigger console compared to before. It's like a tablet. If anybody has Nexus 7 Android tablet vibes from this, so do I. Nintendo Switch 2 logo on the rear here, and if I bring out the kickstand, it's not across the entire back of the console, but still feels fairly sturdy. I believe that I will be playing quite a bit on here, not docked, but just sort of kickstand to the side, because the screen is big enough to be able to do that quite comfortably now. And there's the Mario Kart World download code. Scratch that off and be able to download the game a little bit later. of course the HDMI cable, and the Joy-Con guards. Now, full disclosure, my girlfriend already opened her Nintendo Switch 2 box, and I got a pretty good look and feel for everything using her unit. So I'm kind of familiar with how to actually connect these. These black portions on the back here are what should be facing outward because those are the pads for the mouse controls, which I'm super excited to try out today. Get in there at an angle, and then this is going to feel really interesting, especially in certain games where on a console you didn't really have the chance to use mouse controls for like an FPS, for a first-person shooter, and Cyberpunk is going to be one of the first games I buy for this console. One more time for the other side. Plenty of other stuff in the box. The grip, the dog ears as we called them last time. This will require taking these off, but it will give a look into how these Joy-Cons connect to the new console. Okay, with the guard off, it's no longer a slide, I believe. It is just going, again, at an angle and snapping right in. Yep, there you go. Didn't even have to go in at an angle there. They literally just magnetize right onto this grip, which I imagine is roughly the feel that you're going to get when putting these Joy-Cons onto the console. Take a sip of tea for every time I say the word console. And finally, the dock, which is what we're going to use to get the 4K gameplay onto large TVs, or in my case, a projector, but we'll get to that a little bit later. It's a much rounder dock at this point, as you can see on the back here. It's not going to have like hard lines or anything like that. And finally, just taking that back part off, this is where you're going to be putting more of the connectors so that you can get this with HDMI and power connected to your larger display. The dock isn't bad at all. My only gripe with the Switch in terms of design so far is that it only comes in the one colorway, but of course that's going to be the way that Nintendo gets us later on with special editions. And finally, of course, the power adapter and cable. Looking at this adapter, it looks like it tops out at 60 watts, so plenty of power going to the Switch 2. And with that, we are officially unboxed. This is everything that you get in the unboxing experience. Of course, we're going to get the Joy-Cons connected to here and get started setting up this console. Which reminds me, in order for me to even do that, I have to get my original Nintendo Switch. Speaking of special editions, this is the Tears of the Kingdom Legend of Zelda edition of the original Nintendo Switch. Actually, not original, this is the Nintendo Switch OLED. And there is your size comparison. The main unit of the Switch 2 is practically the same size as most of the original Nintendo Switch hardware. This is going to be a much larger thing for you to travel with if that's something that you do. And in general, it seems to me that the Switch 2 is more or less a console rather than a handheld. It's leaning more in that direction. I was just about to hit the power button, but let's take a look at a little bit of the hardware. I don't have a memory card, or rather SD card EX, or whatever they call it, extra, or whatever that might be. So I'm going to have to wait for that. This is for the game cartridges though. The SD card is actually nestled down here in the kickstand. So I need to go buy one of those SD cards. Plenty of accessories are going to be acquired for this Switch 2 in the coming days. Extra USB-C port up here, but anyway, before I get too distracted, let's get fired up. That first night was spent with me and my girlfriend just enjoying Mario Kart World. It is a fantastic game, I do have to say. As far as the controls and gameplay are concerned, it is a very tight racer, even though the open world aspect made me scratch my head a little bit. It is in the open world that you can find a lot of the unlockables and collectibles, including the outfits for the various characters, and it was in the search for all of the food bags that allow you to get the costumes that we realized the open world is actually super chill, and it is a great way to just sort of pass the time if you don't really want to get into any competitive races that would maybe spike your cortisol a little bit. It's only been like 2.5 days so far, but my girlfriend and I have actually rolled credits on Mario Kart World already. We've gone through all of the various cups, and if you haven't seen what comes near the end game, you definitely should try it out for yourself, especially if you have a little bit of that nostalgia and you're just a fan of Mario Kart in general. One thing we had a lot of fun with though was the photo mode, especially since one, let's call it unfortunate but hilarious situation occurred, and I just threw a bomb right in the face of my girlfriend's character. We spent a ton of time just trying to find the right angle, using the replay after the race, and trying to line it up with all of these different frames that were available in there. There's a lot that you can do beyond just the core gameplay of something like Mario Kart World, so I actually commend it for that. And of course, since I was able to get screenshots or save photos from these replays and in the photo mode, I am definitely going to be making this my desktop wallpaper or even my phone wallpaper for a little bit. But that kind of gets me to this whole idea of the Switch 2 after these first couple of days. There's a certain word that is constantly being used for certain games that were originally on the Switch 1 but now are being made available for the Switch 2 with enhancements in the graphics and maybe even some gameplay changes. That word is expansion. So like you saw in the unboxing, the Switch 2 is a substantially larger device compared to the Switch 1, but overall it maintains all of the main tropes that made the Switch 1 such a desirable handheld console. Despite the overall size increase of the Switch 2, it's still a very thin device, which means that it feels pretty sleek in the hand when going handheld. Something like a grip or even a case that wraps around the console might make this a more enjoyable experience if you feel discomfort when going handheld. The Joy-Cons don't slide into the main unit anymore, instead they snap on with a very satisfying click. It's not exactly the same sound or even feel from the Switch 1, but it's still something that is memorable nonetheless. The screen is much larger, and while an OLED would have been preferable on a larger, higher resolution screen like this, it is still a good looking display, and when you're playing the right games, all of the detail does come through. Not to mention the better hardware inside with the NVIDIA Tegra chip also makes things like loading times that much better. In a game like Breath of the Wild, and eventually I will get over to Tears of the Kingdom to do a second playthrough on the Switch 2, those faster loading times are definitely going to be really nice to have. But expansion clearly also means the fact that the higher power of the Switch 2 allows it to play more games than you might have expected to come on the Switch 1. Case in point, Street Fighter 6 and Cyberpunk 2077. I had to jump into these two games immediately because I'm a big fan of both of them, and now I have a new place to be able to play them. Now, it is a bit of a pill to swallow that I have to pay full price for both of these, but at least Cyberpunk 2077 comes with Phantom Liberty, and Street Fighter 6 comes with all of the Year 1 and Year 2 characters. It's in Cyberpunk 2077 that I wanted to try out the new mouse controls. This is where I believe the mouse controls will make the most sense for people who may not already be huge PC gamers or even use mouse and keyboard on other consoles. Technically, this has been done before, but of course Nintendo's putting their own spin on it, as both of the Joy-Cons can actually be used as a mouse, and it kind of makes sense with the trigger and the shoulder button to have your clicks in order to shoot in the case of Cyberpunk 2077. This is contrary to the more stick-like design that you saw in the Lenovo Legion Go. I said this in a previous video when the Switch 2 was originally announced, that I'm really excited for this to just open up the doors, open up the possibilities for people who may only buy a Switch. You now have the opportunity to actually enjoy a lot of other games as long as developers actively come over to the Switch 2 platform. If there is one place that I'm a little bit miffed by in terms of the lack of proper expansion, it's probably in the third-party peripherals that I want to use with this console. This is also considering I don't have like the new Pro Controller, I don't have the webcam yet, and I don't even have a case for it, which I'm kind of waiting for. I will be doing accessories roundups in the future, so make sure you subscribe to my channel to look forward to all of that. But I am happy to report that some accessories are going to work with it after usually just like one little update. I'm talking, of course, about the 8-bit Do controllers. Another one I was really excited to get into, especially because of this USB-C port up top, is my Snackbox Micro. Yes, my leverless arcade fight stick. I already alluded to it before, but Street Fighter 6 is a game I was super excited to play on here with the better hardware, especially in tabletop mode. Putting the Snackbox Micro right next to the large screen of the Nintendo Switch 2 makes a lot of sense for me when playing Street Fighter 6. What's not awesome is how rusty I am when it comes to this game. So it's good to have the USB-C port up top so that you can connect these peripherals whether in console or desktop mode. But there's one thing that I really wanted to use with the Switch 2 that so far doesn't work at all, even with other connectors or in other methodologies, and that would be these right here, the Xreal 1 AR glasses. Aside from actually adapting the HDMI signal from the dock to the glasses, you're not able to use these glasses with the Switch 2 so far. They do say at Xreal that they are working on a solution for it, but it is a little bit of a bummer that even the solutions from the Switch 1 don't carry over to the Switch 2. I'm looking forward to when these glasses can actually work with the Switch 2, whether it's with an extra accessory or anything like that, and I will report back when that is the case in the future. That's because I want to be able to use the micro OLED displays of these glasses to just blow up the screen of the already big Switch 2, especially with all of the games that I'm looking forward to playing on here. Not to mention the travel scenario. So clearly I'm high on the Switch 2 already. There's a lot of fun to be had on here, even if I have to admit, overall, I do think that the term 2 is a little bit odd to give to a console that is just so similar to before. When you think about the leaps from like the PlayStation 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, there are some really radical changes that happened in that particular console after each generation. Meanwhile, we have a new generation of the Nintendo Switch and it's just bigger. It's just expanded compared to before. Whether or not the expansions of the Nintendo Switch 2 make it worth the money, it will be up to all of you, and I want to know what your opinions are in the comments down below. Like I said during the unboxing, I just want to give my thoughts on it so far and to share it with all of you in case you're still on the fence, or maybe you're not going to end up getting a Switch 2, but you're interested to see where it goes from here. That's pretty much where I am with the Nintendo Switch 2. I'm really excited to see what titles come to this from third-party developers, but also what other Nintendo properties or exclusives will come to this console. Not to mention, there are a lot of games that I still haven't finished from the Nintendo Switch 1, like Metroid Prime Remastered, Metroid Dread, even Octopath Traveler, and Shin Megami Tensei 5. I have a lot to finish, and you know what? Doing them on a larger screen with better hardware, that is enticing. And so, there you have it. A few days-ish with the Nintendo Switch 2, and I'm just giving you my first impressions of it after I unboxed it when I finally got back from a trip and I got the actual console from Target. I wanted to take the opportunity to just ad-lib this video, not just because I want to get back to doing videos off the cuff, but also because I wanted to get this done as fast as possible to get back to playing on my Switch 2. But so far I will call this console a net positive. It's certainly a step forward, it is more of an expansion of the Nintendo Switch so far, and I'm also going to keep calling it a console. And that's docked and connected to the projector that I'm using for the moment at my new apartment, and enjoying the 4K resolution on the larger display. That is the enhancement that I feel like the internal hardware really is able to shine in. And don't get me wrong, handheld mode is still good as long as you think that the size is not uncomfortable. I'll still play this probably like in bed or definitely during travel until the glasses work, and I'll be able to play all of my games while on the go, and that's the whole point of the Switch. I just think it's leaning more into the console side of things rather than the handheld side this time around. But before this video gets way too long and way too ranty, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. My first impressions, my day one with the Nintendo Switch. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and allowing me to show you my experience with the Switch 2. Let me know any thoughts or questions in the comments down below, and I will be back to give you some accessory videos and also a what worked and what didn't with the Switch 2 when I feel the time is right. With all that said though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for kicking it with me again today. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.